All right, so here is a quick screencast for Susan Davis. She sent me a Facebook message asking about how to have multiple editors on one project. In her case, I believe it's a film. And so I'm going to show you a quick workflow for multiple editors. This is multiple editors with local storage, not connected shared storage, just local storage with multiple editors. So what I've done here is I've set up, since I'm not doing two machines, I've set up basically two separate drives which will represent, editor 1's machine and editor 2's machine. So over here on M2 Post 3 in the FCPX tutorials, I have editor 1, and then over on my G-Speed Studio RAID FCPX tutorials, I have editor 2. So first thing that you're going to do is create a folder structure for your footage that you're going to bring into your project. So editor 1 over here creates a folder called raw footage. Inside of that are folders for the different types of footage that editor has. There's some golf footage, some interviews, some interview audio, so the second source audio files for that, location scenics, meetings, parties, etc. Now, once you have that set up, that folder structure with all your raw footage in it, you're going to take that and copy it over to another drive that you're going to hand to editor 2, and then maybe another drive that you're going to hand to editor 3 and 4 and so on. The basic idea here is that all of the editors all have the same pool of footage. It's duplicated across all the edit systems. So once you have that, let's go into Final Cut 10. And so editor 1 will create a new library. So let's go over to editor 1's machine. And we'll call this library editor 1. And then I'm also going to copy the name of the library into the event just to keep us from getting way too confused. I'm going to close this event. All right, so now editor 1 is going to bring footage into their project. So import media. Let's go over to editor 1's drive to where their footage is. In the FCPX tutorials, editor 1, raw footage, and here's all of the folders with the footage in it. We're going to just grab those folders. We're going to make sure that keywords from folders is selected so that it'll create keyword collections based upon these folder names. And then here is the key. You have to leave files in place. Do not copy the files into the library. Leave them in place, and you'll see why in a moment. So let's say import all. And there we go. We got all of our footage into the library. You can see that it's also assigned keywords based upon those folder names. So editor 1 does that, and editor 2 is going to do the same. So now we're going to pretend as if we're on editor 2's machine. Editor 2 is going to create a new library. So let's go over to editor 2's machine. FCPX tutorials, editor 2, raw footage. I'm sorry, not there. We want to go into the root of editor 2, so the editor 2 drive, and we're going to create a library called, you guessed it, editor 2. And then again, we're going to copy that editor 2, paste it into the event so that we don't completely confuse ourselves. All right, so now editor 2 is going to do the same thing, import the footage into their library. So let's make sure we go over to editor 2's machine, which in this case is just a drive, raw footage, and once again import all of those assets. Make sure that keywords from folders is selected, and then again, the important part, make sure to leave files in place. Do not import them into the library. So import all. So now editor 2 and editor 1 have basically the same exact library structure. So at this point, I'm going to close editor 2's library. So now we're just so editor 1 is just working. So the first thing editor 1 does is create a new project. to edit in, we're going to leave this for the video properties based on the first video clip is fine, and we'll call this edit. We'll call it editor 1, cut 1. We'll create that project, and now we'll just really quickly throw some footage in here. Let me just do a range select, grab a little bit of, oh come on, range select, grab a little bit of, okay, it's being stupid.
In terms of managing exposures,
we'll mark it in and out, and then we'll just push that in. And then we'll come over to this guy, and we'll mark an in and out on him. Or we'll just, hey, we can do a range select now. We'll do that, push that in. Then we'll go get some B-roll. What kind of B-roll we want? How about some party B-roll? We'll just mark an in and out and put that in as a connected clip. Stretch it across the edit here. And kill the audio on that. Okay, so basically we've got a short edit here. Now, editor 1 wants to share this edit with editor 2. How do you do that? Well, the first thing you're going to do is take the project that you want to share and duplicate it. So we're going to duplicate that project. And then, editor 1, cut 1, I'm going to put my name on it, Mike, and then I'm going to put the date on it, which is going to be 5/9/15. And this is the project that I'm going to share with the other editor. But before I do that, I'm going to create a new library to share in. So we're going to say File, New Library, and I'm going to put this back over on editor 1's system. To dpost FCPX tutorials, editor 1, and I'm going to call this transfer library. Because we're going to use this library to transfer the project from one editor to the other. All right, so, and let's also name the event the same, again, to avoid confusion here. So now, editor 1 takes that duplicated project, and you're just going to drag it into the transfer library. Now you're going to get this, this dialog box that says, selected items and original media will be copied to the storage location for the library transfer library. Now that makes it sound like not only is the project going to go, but all the media is going to go as well. But it's not, because you got to keep reading. You can include available optimized or proxy media in the copy. We're not going to do that, because editor 2 can always optimize or proxy that once they get it. And then right here where it says media stored in external folders will be left in place, that's the key. Since we left the media in place in an external folder, we didn't bring it into the library, that means all this is going to do is copy over the project, right? Just the project, not the media. So at this point we say OK. And we now have, in our transfer library, we have that project. Now I know it looks like we have media as well, but we don't. This media is just it's not in this transfer library's library. It's still out in the external folders. In that library, there's just pointers going to it. And to prove that, let's go look at this transfer library. You can see that the file size is 357 kilobits or kilobytes. So very, very small. This is something that you can just email from one editor to the other. So let's do that. We'll simulate that. We'll simulate editor 1 emails this file, the transfer library, to editor 2. Editor 2 gets it. Editor 2 puts it into their folder, their editor 2 folder. So now they have a transfer library in there. And let's close this. Let's close this. Let's go over to editor 2's library. All right, so now we're on editor 2's machine. So editor 2 opens that transfer library that was just emailed to them. So that's going to be over here on the G Speed Studio, FCPX Tutorials, Editor 2, there's the transfer library. So they're going to open the transfer library. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to eject Editor 1's drive, so that way there's no there's no way that can link up to the footage that's on that drive. So I'm going to eject that drive. It's not going to let me do it because Final Cut's open. Hold on, let me close Final Cut real quick. We're going to quit out of Final Cut. Let's eject Editor 1's drive. So Editor 1's drive goes away. Let's go back into Final Cut. All right, so here is the transfer library, right? And here is the Editor 1 cut that was just emailed to Editor 2. And I know that you're seeing a bunch of red and a bunch of missing files. And the reason that you're seeing that is because this project is pointing to that drive that was on Editor 1's system. So all you need to do is point this back to Editor 2's drive. So we'll select the project, we'll say File, Relink Files, and since Editor 2 has the same media as Editor 1, we just have to locate the media. We're going to say All Media. We're going to say Locate the Media, and then we're going to go over here to Editor 2's drive, the FCPX Tutorial, Editor 2, and there's the raw footage folder. All we have to do is point to Editor 2 because it'll look through the folders below it, and then we say Choose. It's going to find the media. We'll say relink files, and there you go. All the files are now relinked to the media on Editor 2's machine. Did we all follow that? So the key is, two keys to this. All editors have the same footage on their local drives, and that footage, when it's imported into the library, is left in place, not brought into the library. Right? So that way, when you pass around these projects in a transfer library, you can just repoint to the media on the local editor's drive. Now, this also means that if any one of those editors adds any footage to the library, then that footage has to also be shared with the other editors so they can put it into their libraries, right? All the local libraries, all the media has to be the same. So that's it. That's how you do it. I hope that made sense. If not, send me another email message, Susan, and ask any questions you have, and I will try to answer them. That's it. Thanks.